Invocation, please.
To indicate, to exhort, indicate, exhortate, or to meditate, which is to bring some thought into how we approach the day and what we do. TechMasters gives us that opportunity to work that into the meeting and into everything that we do, to be mindful of how we want to leave the world a better place. Madam President.
And welcome, Kyle. Thank you for coming back. And at this time, most of us have name tags to help each other when we have guests in the house. It's great to have name tags so you can tell who's who. Also, Kyle, if you open to ask any of us questions, we'll be here to help with that. Okay, at this time, David, would you please read previous meetings minutes?
It was not here last week, so I don't have.
Okay, that's fair. Plan B. My scribbles, all right. Last week was March Madness. Hey, Tony. And the word of the day was clement, to be mild. And we were talking about bracket madness, and Mark had a fun game of all of us having a bracket for 2 topics. And Max did his icebreaker, and Jem did his icebreaker. Very, very fun. Good icebreakers this year. Lots of fun things coming. And I believe that was it for now. That was our previous meeting minutes. All right, at this time, I'd like to call any unfinished business. Treasurer, do we have any open doors?
Not for anybody here, so I might just talk in the middle, so that's it.
Yay, excellent. Very happy about that. Okay. All right, new business. Alfred. Vince.
Trying to remember what we were discussing.
Yes, new business would be, yes.
Madam President, it's come to my attention that we are dangerously low on space in our guest books. Ergo, I think it would be it would behoove us to obtain another guest book. There are wonderful, fantastic guest books that look exactly like that at the Toastmasters International store. I move that whomever the current treasurer is be authorized to purchase a guest book whenever it becomes fewer than, let's say, 5 pages, as opposed to making it a one-time thing. To be notified by the vice president of membership, as it would be their duty to manage such a guest book.
Excellent. So to reiterate what you just said, a standard task for our VP membership and treasurer would be when the guest book has less than 5 blank pages, the VP membership will notify the treasurer, who in turn has permission to go ahead and order a new book. All right. Now, in the rules of order, our next step after it's been introduced is to have a second for the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Excellent. And now we can vote on this motion.
I believe that
Discuss?
we do discussion before we vote, usually, although in Congress, sometimes they vote on the bill to find out what's in it.
Exactly.
All right. Any discussion on said new process? Yes.
Madam President, I rise in favor of my own resolution, because instead of doing these one-off things where we have to come together and discuss this on a routine basis, so routine that it's happened at least 2 times in our 10+ years of existence, I think it would be better if we were to just allow adults, more than likely, vice presidents, membership, and treasurers to be able to make such a decision.
Thank you, Vince, for those insightful words. Any other discussion at this time?
Madam President, fellow Toastmasters, and the distinguished gentleman from Chanhassen, I just want to say that I am speaking against this motion. It is a waste of money to go out and create these paper sign-in sheets where we are TechMasters. We should be able to do this online. We don't need ink anymore. We don't need to kill trees. The economy is going. We've got all of the ecology. There's a shortage of forest, and if we're going to do something like that, I would think that we would at least plant a tree so that we can replace that book that has been so horribly torn from the womb of our society. And we can't do this, Madam President. Please, I beg you, do not vote for this measure.
Thank you, Mike, for those contrary opinions. Yes, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, I rise in repeated support for my own measure, and I have many points. Number one, I would like to also recognize my fellow esteemed, distinguished, although not technically distinguished, he has not finished the paperwork for Toastmasters B, distinguished Toastmaster, gentleman also from Chanhassen. And I have a few things here. First off, you don't really care about the environment. Don't act like you. I'm the one driving the electric car here every single week, all right? So don't tell me. Secondly, I would be happy to amend, although we won't, be amending my resolution to say that we can continue to follow the protocol that I set forth until specifically Mike Bankovich comes up with a technologically superior way, but only Mike.
Duly noted.
If he's so happy to add that amendment, I would definitely be in favor of the amendment.
Now, to be clear, we are voting on a process to make sure we always have.
Sorry, point 3. Mike was kidding.
David, no, you have to wait.
President,
No.
David, we're done first. Sit down. You're out of order.
All right, guys. David, last chance.
I would like to amend this to also include putting a note to this effect in whatever documentation that we have for incoming treasurers and incoming vice presidents of membership, so that this is not just known for the next 2 weeks when we remember it, but this will be known in the years to come.
Excellent, excellent amendment. Thank you, David. All
All right, second the amendment.
All right, second amendment, seconded. So we are voting on.
You
Yeah.
should vote on the amendment first.
We have to vote on.
Yep.
If there's discussion on the amendment before you vote on it.
Yes.
Any discussion on this?
Shh.
Tony?
Can we have the amendment, the correct text of the amendment, because it seems like it got adjusted, read back to us so that we know what we're going to be voting on?
Most certainly.
Mr. Secretary, could you please read the amendment? And the motion? The motion and the amendment motion.
Motion and the amendment is that we have that the treasurer will be empowered to order a new guest book whenever the current guest book falls below 5 pages of open space, and as noted by the vice president of membership. And then the amendment was to note this in the documentation for the training materials for both the vice president of membership and the treasurer.
Question, was there also an amendment to add the electronic bit to it?
No,
No.
I mean, the fine gentleman here from Chance, to add such an amendment, and if he were to do so, I would vote for it. But I'm not going to add that. So,
I would not propose to actually do work that I don't have to. I just want to say.
Thank you for all that lovely, lively discussion. And at this point, let us please vote on the motion with the amendment.
You need to vote on the amendment.
Okay, voting on the amendment, all who are in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Amendment carries. Next, voting on the motion about getting a new guest book. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Duly noted. Motion carries.
duly ignored.
Someone's got to have the discussion.
All right, at this time, does anyone have announcements they would like to share? Mike?
Madam President, fellow Toastmasters, today is launch day for Visual Studio 2019. It will be at the Microsoft office just up the street. We will have pizza and whatever at lunch. It starts at 11 o'clock. We're streaming the keynote and some of the other sessions from the actual events, so it won't be any like actual live demos or anything like that. It'll just be come and sit, eat pizza, party, install Visual Studio, have some fun.
11 until when?
11 until whenever everyone leaves. Which will probably be, noon, 1 o'clock, depends on what time the pizza's done. But I'll stick around until 5.
Very good, thank you. Also, we have a speech contest coming up April 9th for our division, and Mark Well, who's not here at the moment, will be presenting for the evaluation session. And everyone, if you have time, please do the volunteer piece. Vince, have you gotten anything from our division person? I haven't seen anything yet about exactly what room or anything like that. Yeah. Okay.
Unfortunately, I've been totally ignoring that because I set my division contest for the same night.
Yes.
But I will not attempt to recruit anybody else from this club.
Anyway, I will find something to that effect and send it your way, and we'll get that sent out to you. All right. Also, TechMasters After Dark is the 18th of this month in this room, and we'll be doing improv exercises. And Peter's going to help lead those, and it'll be great fun. And that starts at 5:30. That's when the pizza arrives, and the program begins at 6, done by 8. Next, let's take a look at the status of training. We have more people moving through level 2 and pathways. Excellent. Nathaniel made it all the way to level 3. Go Nathaniel. Awesome. So if you have any updates to this, please let Vince know, and it'll be on the list. At this point in time of the program, I get to introduce our TechMaster for the day, who will lead us through the program and the rules. And today, Mike is going to tell us about chaos. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chaos, what does it mean? James Glick, in his seminal tome, Chaos, the art of finding order within disorder, talks about how when everything seems to be going crazy and whatever, you can find little pockets of order coming out of it, fractals and different mathematical equations. All of that kind of comes together. And within the last few weeks, the last few months, it feels like there's been a whole lot of chaos with the weather, with the change of the seasons, with the release of technology and all of those products. So today, we're going to talk about finding a little bit of order and finding a little bit of chaos and having some fun with both. To kick us off, let's start out with a little bit of levity. Mike Pressman is our court jester.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow TechMasters, honored guests. A boy went to a wedding for the first time. After the service, his cousin came up to him and said, "By the way, do you know how many women a man can marry?" Immediately, the boy said, 16. The cousin said, "Well, how did you know that? You rattled that off so quickly." The boy says, "Well, if you just count them up. 4 better, 4 worse, 4 richer, 4 poor." 16. Sorry, I forgot comparison. Thank you.
To add to the chaos, we have opportunities to step up and take on roles. And I notice that most people here are either in a role or doubling up on a role. We do have an opening for a grammarian and for a general evaluator. And so before we get to those roles, if you think that you want to do something like that, when I get to the grammarian, just say, "Hey, I want to be grammarian," and we'll let you do that. Our general evaluator will figure that out at the break, but Alex is not here at this point. If he does show up, then we'll go with that. But to take us into kind of a little nugget of knowledge, a little bit of how do we make TechMasters work, we have a role known as our 1-minute Toastmaster. This is an opportunity for us to learn something about communication and also maybe something about our club. Our 1-minute Toastmaster this morning is an improv artist, someone who has gone through a lot of different iterations on how do I make this all work. Let's welcome Peter Van Dorst as our 1-minute Toastmaster.
So when I go to conferences and I'm looking for the talks that I want to attend, I'm looking for two things. One, I want to be educated. I want to learn something. And two, I want to be entertained. And I've been to a couple of talks that were absolutely boring. Very memorable in that way. There was one guy who did it, his topic was machine learning, which I thought, what a fascinating talk this will be. And it was awful. It was like listening to him describe gray for 50 minutes. And so when I go to write my speech, when I go to invest time into creating something, I'm looking for those two things. I want to make it educational and I want it to be entertaining. So I approach it at two different times, right? I'll come after it and look for things to put in there that are educational, and then I'll take a break and I'll come back at that same speech and I'll come at it with the focus of how can I make this entertaining? Jokes, comedy, stories are a big part. Anything that can be any descriptive stuff, colorful language, that's always very helpful. So, thank you.
To pile on, sometimes it's nice to have a quick one-liner. I used to be indecisive, but now I'm not so sure, something like that. So to take us down our grammatical challenge, our grammatical role today, we have Kip Grant, who is not here. Does anyone have a word for the day and is willing to step up to the role of being our grammarian?
Always circle back.
We can
We could improv ourselves in Premier.
we can improv ourselves into a word like chaos.
We could slide through the timer roll and then revisit.
That's
Someone
true. We are
will
also
be
short of a
grammarian.
timer.
Oh, sure. There we go.
Okay, here's our timer. So our timer today, I'll let you introduce and what?
We need the rest of that stuff.
Yes.
Cards.
Cards, thunder, and light.
Oh, careful, careful.
Actually, this should,
You need the remote. You got the
Yeah, he's
remote.
got
That's
the
right.
remote. Well, he needs to be
Let's
close to
see
it
how
because
far
there's a
it
certain
is.
proximity to it.
there it is.
Yeah, so you can bring it back with you.
Yeah, the globe.
So, is it Max?
Yes.
Max, can you tell us about your role and how you're going to proceed today?
I think if I remember the timing right. Oh, perfect. Thank you. For the speech, the main speech, the green light would be 5 minutes. The yellow is 6, and the red is 7 minutes. The latest time. The evaluation, the green is 2 minutes, yellow is 2.5, red is 3. And the table topic, green is 1 minute, yellow 1.5, red is 2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max. And now we're going to go back to looking for a grammarian before we dive into table topics. Peter, is our grammarian today, doing some improv.
So, as a grammarian, I'll be looking for crutch words, especially during the table topics, and I'll be ringing the bell and counting those for everyone. And I'll also be counting usage of word of the day, which is pandemonium. Which means wild uproar or unrestrained disorder, tumult or chaos.
All right. Thank you. So we will look for the pandemonium to come when we get into the table topics because that's diving into impromptu speaking. Today's table topic master is someone who understands how to manage chaos, has worked through a number of different roles, and it brings a lot of order to this club. Let's welcome our table topics master today, Lori Lorenz. Lori?
This is gonna be We have trippy table topics today. And looking up chaos theory, I went, all right, I kind of know what this is. What is this? And there's something called the butterfly effect. Movies use the butterfly effect. But I didn't realize there was a kindred spirit behind this. Edward Lorenz created the Lorenz system. And Edward's definition of chaos is kind of fun. When the present determines the future. But the approximate present does not approximately determine the future. There's causality, but not predictability. Interesting thought. So here, I have 4 categories for you of different areas of chaos theory. And I've numbered them because I'm not going to reveal what these categories truly are until you choose one. Add a little bit of chaos into the process. And there are up to 3 questions for any of those 3 categories. Now, the people today who already have a speaking role would be Drew and Vince. Kyle, are you up for a question or you feel like you would like to wait?
I think I'll pass it.
Very good. All right. So, to start, let's see, Tony, would you like to pick a category?
The misshapen infinity symbol.
All right. This is the butterfly effect. This is a diagram of the formula that Edward Lorenz came up with. So, what present moment event might have the biggest impact on the future?
Madam Topic Master, fellow TechMasters, and honored guests, you ask what present event will have the largest influence on future events? As I understand the butterfly effect, if a butterfly effect flaps its wings in Brazil, it could cause a tornado in Minnesota. So a major event is not necessarily the most important. We don't know what insignificant event that's occurring today will have the biggest effect on the future. It could be that a light will change to red too quickly and trigger a nuclear war. Or maybe some other odd causality, because there does not seem to be any correlation between events, between one event and the other. A butterfly that flaps its wings, how can that create a tornado? So, based on that, I don't know what the most important event is or what's going to cause the most pandemonium in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. All right. Next up, David, please pick a category.
What category would you pick? I will go with the fern category.
All right. This one is called Patterns in Chaos. What is your favorite conspiracy theory?
Favorite conspiracy theory. There are many conspiracy theories. They abound. They're easy to come up with because all you need is a little bit of introduced correlation. So you look at timing, and the timings of things look like they might work out, and you do that enough, and then you get confirmation bias to come in, and that takes a 2 or 3 little coincidences and snowballs that into a conspiracy theory. As to which one is my favorite, I don't know that I have a favorite per se. don't go in much for the conspiracy theories anymore these days. Yeah, I don't know that I have a favorite per se, but I guess my favorite is the learning about things like confirmation bias that contribute to these conspiracy theories, and some of the other psychological things that we've learned about some of these persistent problems in our perception of the world. So that is the way I think about the conspiracy theories.
Thank you, David. First one. Please pick a category.
How about the cute little gears?
All right, this is applied chaos. When have you created chaos, chaotic change? Why and what was the result?
Thank you, Madam Tabletop Master, fellow TechMasters, honored guests. Question is, when have I created chaos? What was the result? Interesting you should ask this question. Spring cleaning. The garage is an interesting place for most people. Pandemonium ensues in the garage when me and my wife start cleaning it. So when the chaos that I create is, for me, I make a mess before I actually end up making sense. So I make chaos before I actually make sense out of what that chaos is. My wife hates it. She thinks that I don't know what I'm doing. She goes out there and tries to help, which is her heart. She's trying to help me clean the garage, but she doesn't understand my chaos, if you will, the method to my madness. So a lot of times she ends up making it worse, if you will. She has her way of doing things and she likes to do it her way. I have my way, so I prefer to just manage through the chaos in my way, and the pandemonium will eventually end, and we will end up with a clean garage. Thank you, Madam Tabletop Master.
Very good. Thank you. I have time for one more. Mike Mitch, would you like to pick a category?
Category 3.
All right, category 3 is entropy versus chaos. Is chaos sustainable? What keeps it going?
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, is chaos sustainable? What is the pandemonium that we need to address in order to make chaos something that is like a turbulent flow? Now, when you study things like fluids and motion and turbulence in aerodynamics, for instance, you have the idea of laminar flow, where if a wing is going through the air, as long as it is going at a certain speed, there will be a change in pressure, and it's very predictable. There's an equation that says what the pressure on the top will be and what the pressure on the bottom will be. And if you have the curve in the wing, the lower pressure that exceeds what the upper pressure is, then you have what's called lift. And that is a great thing for normal flight where you're going at certain types of speeds. Now, when you would get to a certain point where you're starting to break through the sound barrier, you're now getting into where you have this chaos, this turbulent flow, which does not follow the same equations. And so mathematically, it all breaks down, and you end up with something where you have a wing shape, which is very different on a supersonic airplane versus a subsonic, which has the nice curve, which is very understandable. It's now we're getting into the kind of math that this whole chaos theory dives into, which is all different ways of looking at equations that maybe apply in certain situations, but not in others. When Einstein brought out his equation about how relativity all works, I was thinking that I am relatively ignorant about how the whole thing actually comes together, but it does make sense when say E is equal to MC squared, but C is equal to E over M squared, and kind of then work your way back to PV is equal to nRT, which then goes back to Boyle's law which is how do I boil this without, how do I boil the ocean and come up with something that's useful? Madam Toastmaster.
I would say that we have lovely examples of pandemonium reaching from coast to coast and top to bottom with this discussion. And at this time, I believe we have wrapped up for right now. And I believe the final, I would say, takeaway of all of this is that when you put chaos in, contrary to popular belief, you'll get patterns back out. Our whole world is based on chaos, so a little bit of chaos goes a long way, and it's a good thing. Mr. Toastmaster?
Thank you, Lori. And at this point, we're going to call for our two speakers, Drew and Vince. And Tony, you are an evaluator. We need a second evaluator. Mike, would you be willing to evaluate? And I will be the general evaluator for the second part of the meeting. We'll take a 5-minute break, and when we come back, we'll dive right back in at 8:23.
I'm remembering right that this stuff is out as of this month.
June 30th of next year.
Oh, next year.
Yes.
Yeah, 2 years from last, from when we rolled out. Yeah, time.
What?
Okay.
But that does.
Okay, so here's
Good. Well, I only.
Okay.
I thought we did.
I had it this year.
that gives
So
me an idea of which list.
Vince and Drew are the two
All right.
speakers. So it's up to you to assign the speakers. Speaking order.
All right, thank you.
Vince, what's your titles?
I can't remember the name of it, but it was making the greatest of like.
David, you Drew, go first,
I can pull it up.
Quick.
yeah, Drew, okay,
Tony?
and Vince.
Yes, sir.
My time should be probably 8 to 10.
And speaking order?
Drew will go first.
Okay, Drew, what's your title?
Text me and come. Yes, sure.
Okay.
Done.
All right,
Yeah, making the world's greatest Toastmasters.
okay. Okay, cool.
So just
Evaluating.
documenting my process. Documenting my process.
I figured it out. It's up there.
Oh,
It's that little crack in the blinds that's only there for one 15-minute slice of being right angle. There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Except step to the left.
It shows a few things like I don't had to wing it.
Needless to say, 7:30 in the morning, you don't get many complaints. Don't have that many people.
Hopefully, in person, you want to explain why that is pretty ridiculous. And
look, I can cover one.
it's awesome. Yeah, I
As
mean,
long as I do it slow.
yeah, I mean, if you, so you just did it like 3 times, it's the equivalent, right?
That's true.
There you go.
So you just gotta keep the chaos in the bottle.
See, the chaos is if you take the cap off,
Oh,
while you're doing this, what's the chances of catching it back in the bottle?
What's the chances of actually taking the cap off while you're doing it?
Ooh.
That's actually pretty high, especially since I opened it already.
How was it? On this. Vice suspension. Remember, and after me.
All right.
We have to check and make sure Maxie's on the regular email list, listed as last email that went out for some reason.
Okay.
It could have just been a reply. that was-
2 minutes.
Or you can just.
Actually,
Now, go back in on the transcript.
I actually set up email addresses that will go to all registered.
We have a mysterious email that people were using to find everybody. It was a shortcut for them having this cross out. That's the trick. Yeah, that's good.
All right. So you guys ready to dive back in? It's a beautiful day. It's March 32nd, 33rd, something like that. We are now beyond the pale where corporations have to file their taxes by March 15th, and April 15th is coming. And that means only one thing. If you have friends at the IRS, it's time to get in touch. Today, we're going to dive into a topic which is talking about how all the taxes work and what you need to be aware of. Our first speaker is someone who has, I think, has actually paid taxes at least once, and he's going to give us some interesting information. The tax man coming. Welcome, Drew Anderson.
Thought of the necessity for this talk sometime last year when I was kind of bragging with one of my coworkers about our benefits portal, which would only accept whole numbers for withholdings for your 401k. And I just thought that was kind of bonkers because once you make as much as a lot of us overpaid computer touchers do, you whole number of your full salary is a lot. It's kind of a gross adjustment for that number. So I was kind of complaining about this with him, and he said something to the effect of, I need to keep my income below a certain dollar amount. I was like, oh, Steve doesn't understand how tax brackets work. That was all he had to say for me to know that. How do I know this? Because every time someone writes an article about adjusting tax brackets, they can find some idiot who makes way more than I do, who doesn't understand how their taxes work, and will say, well, if I make $1 over $500,000, which is a big danger for me this year, I'll have to pay a huge penalty to the IRS. No. Mr. Lawyer, who makes more money in a year than I do in 10, you idiot, that's not how your taxes work. Why don't you know that? Why do I know this? I'm not an accountant. Why do you know that? Well, that's probably because it's often presented poorly. You see tax brackets represented as kind of this stair-step graph often. It doesn't, the top stair isn't nearly high enough, but fine. Finance all of that. Okay. And people think, oh, as soon as I hit the next step, that applies to all of my income. It doesn't. It's because this is a poor visual metaphor for the way the system actually works. You flip this on the y-axis, it becomes a series of buckets. You can conceptually flow the money into the first bucket. Once it fills, it overflows into the next bucket. Each bucket is only taxed at that rate for that bucket. So as soon as you get $1 in that higher percentage bucket, you pay a few cents more, not a few $1,000 more. It's real simple when you present it correctly. And this has a fun knock-on effect that I like to show people. This is my favorite representation of how it works. This is the marginal rate. That's the rate of the bucket. That's the headline rate. You know, the top marginal rate is 37% in this graph, 37-ish, yeah, because it's from 2018. I couldn't find one for 2019. And people think, oh, that means people are paying 37% of their income in taxes. No, no one's. Literally no one. Because your effective rate is the average of all of the money you paid. It effectively makes it really neat if anybody remembers high school, I think freshman math, maybe even 8th grade. This looks a whole lot like a log graph. And you think, well, why don't we just write that as the log? You know, why don't we just say your taxes are the log of X times some decimal number? Well, people already can't wrap their heads around a nice stair step like this, so you throw a logarithm. It's that the average American who's basically too enumerate to do their taxes already, and they're just going to be like, it's going to be pandemonium, just total pandemonium. Nobody's going to get their taxes right. Nobody's going to figure it out. They're going to pull out their calculator and be like, oh, there's this button I never used before. How does that work? You press it, and then it doesn't do anything. Then until you press it again, and until you press another number, and nobody's going to figure that out. People can barely figure this out. I have very little confidence that people are going to be able to figure out log. Simple freshman algebra log graph. So the next time you hear somebody say, "Oh, I can't make any more, or I'm going to get a big tax bill," say, "No. You're going to pay a few cents more every dollar you earn over that. That's it. That's all. It's not going to be some huge hit on your taxes. You're not going to pay suddenly a quarter of your taxes, or a quarter, I guess 37% of them. You're not going to suddenly pay a third of all of your money to the federal government when you earn $34,000 a year. That's not how it works. It's not how it's ever worked, as far as I can tell from the historical record. That's just pernicious misunderstanding propagated by people who are too lazy to write a proper article about it, I guess. And the other thing is, I always like to point out, is nobody pays that rate. Nobody pays that headline rate. Nobody actually pays that full 37%. It's not because they're dodging taxes. It's not because they're decreasing their taxable income below that top bracket. It's because your total tax rate never asymptotically approaches, more math jargon, that top rate. It never actually gets there for your full income. So yeah, the next step. So go forth and speak truth to people who can't do it.
Thank you, Drew. The pandemonium of trying to understand how all of that tech stuff comes together, yeah, it can feel like it's just crazy, it's chaos, but there is some order to it. In the same way, when you think about how IoT works, IoT being the Internet of Things, or devices and electronics and digital. How many people have thought that they wanted to be an electrical engineer and go out and create something really, really cool? Well, our next speaker has dived into creating something great, something that is very visual, it's illuminating, it is going down that path of creating the world's greatest Toastmaster lights. Let's welcome Vince Bullinger to take us down that path and share, how do I get to that destination?
Good morning, everyone. Good doing? Oh, I don't know. Oh man, who to the left and right would be easy. Okay, is this going to be? Oh man, this is fantastic. I think we should just talk about this for the next 5 to 7 minutes. No. Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about making the world's greatest Toastmasters timing lights. That might be a little bit of a hyperbole, but I am happy with my end product. So I have a big event coming up, the Division E contest in District 106, not District 6. And on April 9th at the Freeman Office Building in St. Paul, 6 p.m. You are all invited, although I don't want to take recruits away from the division contest for this. So it's going to be totally lit. I'm serious. It's going to be the best, like literally the best division contest you've ever seen. I'm dead serious. It's going to be awesome. All right, so most of the things that I've been going through and planning are absolutely amazing. I'm definitely going to do the food right. I've been to some contests and you just kind of go, here's water and coffee. And I'm like, no, it's not quite how it works. I've also been to division contests where people barbecue, smoke their own meats, and brought this gigantic thing. I'm like, okay, all right. So it's going to be somewhere in the middle, but it's going to be fantastic. I'm going to have the district officer candidates campaign materials in a very visible spot. People who are running for office want to be able to actually be able to campaign. And at a division contest, that's a pretty high level. So we're definitely going to make sure that that's in a prominent position. Essentially, you walk in the door, food, and then candidates morning. People will be able to actually learn about what's going to happen in the district. I have an absolutely amazing Toastmaster, Mr. Bankovich here, who has graciously agreed to be my contest Toastmaster. Tons of free parking, even in downtown St. Paul. For some strange reason, at the 4:35 o'clock time frame, even in the Capitol complex, it's all free. So, amazing parking job and everything, great. My Eventbrite is super sweet. You can just hurry up, go there, type that in. KSense did great. Oh man, that's the greatest Eventbrite thing ever. All right, but not everything is super perfect. I already had a disqualified contestant. He joined a second club, won their contest, and won the area contest, and his vice president membership made his membership active April 1st after the contest. So he is disqualified. Toastmasters International said that, not me. Another contestant may be disqualified because their club is not currently in good standing. Worst thing ever. When I go to events, and even at an area contest level, I hope we have something better than cards. But sometimes I still see at events we have cards. We have a wonderful glowing orb in the back. That's a really good option for a club. But at an event like this, to be honest, that might not be good. There was a contest, an area contest, where they had a really cool timing setup. I would say it was about yay big. And I found this thing online, it was about $90. And I thought, that's pretty good too. It was in the front, and one of the contestants still didn't catch it in time, and he went over by 1 second, which really sucked because that was a fantastic evaluation. He didn't even use notes. Moving along, I thought, I want this to be able to be like the greatest thing ever, and I looked around, I just couldn't find anything, so I said, forget it, I'm gonna build something. Most Toastmasters timing lights are awful. They frequently make noise, are cheap, and or just aren't quite what you like. It's a quote by me. Last thing, although I didn't say it, it's in my head. What would I call the perfect timing lights for a large event like this? Well, I want it to be easy to see. Big, bright, easy to see, and changeable with one switch. I don't want them to turn the yellow light on and then the green one off. I want them to just turn a switch and the next light is on. Is that so freaking hard? Just don't get it. Everywhere I looked online, all the different options of separate light switches, or the lights were too tiny, or they were dark, whatever it was, just wasn't what I wanted. So I decided to make it. First off, found literal actual reclaimed traffic lights on eBay for, holy cow, just $15. Oh, they're $15 shipping, but whatever. It's still a solid price for 3 actual real traffic lights. And they're very easy to see. You're supposed to be able to see these things from like half a mile away, right? So even in the back of a very large room where you would have a division contest, you should easily be able to see, right? Sounds like a plane to me. Now, you can get one, I got one of these, basically it's a wire that you plug into the outlet, and then at the end, well, they have these frayed wires that you can actually plug into stuff. All right, I'm totally gonna need that if I'm gonna make the light from scratch, right? So I got one of those for $8 at Home Depot. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with it now. So I got the thing and I got these lights. So what do I do now? Okay. Disclaimer, not an electrician. No idea what in the world I'm doing. Copying me is really dumb. and in no way, shape, or form to hold any liability whatsoever if you were to copy. I'm just explaining what I do, not giving a tutorial. Just explaining what I did. I needed a switch, something that had the thing. I didn't really know what it's called or anything. I just started Googling words until I found something that made sense. Apparently, it's called a 4-position rotary cam changeover switch. That's what this thing is. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 settings. That's right. Off, green, yellow, red. That's what I need, right? Exactly. It's only $9. All the comments were saying this is what it's for. You're to turn on either 3 things or to wire 3 different things up. And then a totally off setting. Great, this is perfect. This is what I need. But it came with no instructions at all. It's only $9. And they're essentially at that point, they're like, here it is. Go figure it out yourself. We're not going to help you. No customer support or anything. For $9, I could get anything like that. And it had a lot of bad reviews because nobody knew how to use it. There were a couple of electricians that were like, yeah, I figured it out. What's the problem? They didn't want to tell anybody how it was used, but they did figure it out themselves. So they're like, I gave it a 5-star because it totally works. And everyone's like, can you tell us how? No response there. And literally like dozens and dozens of comments. How does it work? I tried wiring it for hours. I can't figure it out. This is stupid 1-star. I'm like, you know what? That makes total sense for a non-electrician to buy. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to use it. Great. All right, so wiring the switch. There are these numbers on the side, and it's awfully weird where it's like it kind of sections it off. It's 5 this way, and 3 this way, and 2 that way. I'm trying to figure out some sense out of any of it. What does it even mean? Apparently, from what the only little bits of instructions people were saying in the comments, 1 connects to 2, 3 connects to 4, 5 connects to 6, 7 connects to 8. Okay, how? That wasn't explained, but that's how they said. So like, okay, so 1 has to connect to 2 somehow. Where do the neutrals go? I just don't know. Where do I put the hots? Where do I put the neutrals? 2, 4, 6, and 8. Like when I connect 1 to 2, the 1 hot, 2 the neutral. I don't know. I can't figure that one out. And even when I was thinking about it schematically, like if I do that, what's going to happen? I kept coming up with the idea of like all the lights would just be turned on at the same time. And I'm looking at the comments, all the lights turn on at the same time. Yeah. Okay, so it's not going to be the way that I'm going to do it because I know it's not going to work. I've changed a bunch of outlets and light fixtures and stuff, and I know a little bit about electrical stuff, but still not an expert. What do I do with the neutrals? Or just mix them all together? I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. And then at one point, I just had this blinding flash of the obvious. Like, wait a minute. The way I'm thinking about it on all those outlets, look at all those contacts. If you ever change any kind of outlet, your mind goes from one side's got to be the hot, one side's got to be the neutral. That's not it. You're connecting the input hot to the light, obviously, and then you just put the neutrals all together. That's it. That makes a lot of sense. All right, so here's what I did here. I connected with that. The 1 input goes to 3 inputs. Thing with that wire nut thingy, I don't know what those are called, but I had one of those and it would look like it would be a lot easier than a wire nut, a lot smarter. And so whatever that thing is called, you should totally use those. Those thingies, those are awesome. And so what it is there are 2 big holes here and then there are 2 little screws. You just jam holes in, you screw them all together, and then they're all connected because there's metal on the inside. Whatever that's called, use them. They're awesome. So if you see here, here's that wire. It's frayed over here. I don't have any grounding wires on any of the lights, so I had to just kind of put electrical tape on the end there. If you guys have any clue how I'm supposed to ground those, you let me know. All right, so the input comes in here. I plug it in there, and I have 3 little wires that I cut and put in the other side. And each of those 3 wires go to 1, 3, 5. Okay? Then, and of course, it's a great numbering system. It makes a ton of sense, super logical and obvious. And there's no way you would ever need directions. You see this panel, that makes perfect sense. You totally know what to do, right? Good thing they didn't include instructions. 2, 4, and 6 are the light hots. I noticed on my lights, they're super color coordinated. So you notice here, we got red for red, yellow for yellow, and brown for green. That makes perfect sense. So the 1 was connected to the 2, 2 is this brown one, which is green. 3 is connected to 4, that's the yellow, right? And the 5 is connected to 6. See how that little thing goes, that's 6 right there, that's 8. Sense, right? All right, so that's how you wire that up. But now I needed a case. And I wired that up without any case, just sitting in my kitchen, and it worked on the first try. Oh, that's incredible. So my wife found this perfect sized bookshelf. I'm like, oh, Just each of the shelves were 13.5 inches tall, and the lengths were 12 inches. So, perfect case. All right, great. Now the back there is going to use as the front, as opposed to the back, because you don't see that, right? So I'll just put that on the front. I unwrap it after ordering it from Home Depot. They had to ship it in. The back was cardboard, not like plywood or anything like that. Literally cardboard. And I'm like, well, can't you really take a jigsaw out of cardboard? So I had to use an X-Acto knife. Still needed 3 perfect circles, so I used the rim, the little plastic rim around the light casing. I set it down, made sure the radius was perfectly aligned, held it down, and just drew on the interior of that for my 3 holes. I put that back on, and I super glued the rim to the cardboard. Then I used actual plywood for the back. And then I screwed 2 big holes in the plywood, one for that big dial, and then another one for the actual wiring for the outlet. Now, improving the dial, if you remember, there was 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Well, it doesn't mean anything. What is 0 mean? What is 1 mean? What is 2, right? Instead, what I did was I found the proper angles and wrote out off for the 0, green for the 1, yellow for the 2, red for the 3. It's pretty nice. And then I printed it out on sticker paper. You can actually buy sticker paper that can be printed through a normal printer. And then I laminated it with packing tape. It worked. It was great. So finishing touches. So all that is done, but what I need to do is I got a heavy-duty handle because it's kind of awkward and clumsy. And I'm going to get some rubber feet so it won't slide around if you're trying to change the dial and you push it by accident. That can be annoying. And a cord wrap to actually wrap the cord. But what I wanted to do, show you the final product. Probably didn't know it was here. It's not as heavy as it looks. It's mostly hollow. I don't know if it'll reach over there, so I will move the lectern for 1 second. Rest assured, there's a really cool looking dial here. Boom, green. And people over there are probably traveling through the red light right now. On the other side, yellow, red, if you couldn't tell what's going to happen here. There you go. And the dial is super awesome, man. All right. Conclusions, takeaways, stuff like that. There are really not a lot of quality lights for big events, unfortunately. The only one that I thought that was cool was actually a real reclaimed traffic light put on a pole. 2 problems. It was $185 and they were out of stock. One of those 2, overturnable or overcomeable, but not the other one. The whole it doesn't exist thing is an issue. Clubs really, it could be a solid market there if we wanted to mass produce these things. Clubs have solid options, things like a globe. There are a bunch of other, TechMasters International has a little one like this big that will change from green, yellow, red. That's a solid option for a club. I would have built my own box. I wouldn't have grabbed this bookshelf. I would have just built the box. This is mostly empty. The lights are only a few inches deep. I would have made something a lot smaller, a little more wheeled. Actual traffic lights are, as you couldn't tell, ridiculously bright. I think in a club setting, this might be a little too bright. It might flash in the eyes and create total pandemonium when you flash out and have an epileptic seizure. So I wouldn't say it's suitable for small rooms. Maybe find a way to dampen them. Again, I have no idea what I'm talking about, so I'll have to Google that. If I would care to use it for anything other than a large event. It was a lot of fun to put together. My kids love it. And now my contest will actually be extremely lit. Now, I'll turn it over to the Toastmaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. All right. So now that we've gone through the tax man and where we've had some IoT funds and devices, let's go into the evaluation portion of the meeting. This is where we can get our feedback and learn how we can do things better. Our general evaluator today is going to be Mike Gressman, and I'm going to turn it over in the interest of time so that we can dive right into that. Mike?
Okay. Look over there for a minute. All right, I guess we'll start in the interest of time. We'll just fly right through this. Let's start with our best speaker vote. We had Vince speaking, we had Drew speaking. So put your heads down, please. Those of you that would like to vote for Drew as the best speaker, please raise your hand. Okay. And those that would like to vote for Vince as the best speaker, please raise your hands. All right, thank you. You can raise your heads. All right, let's jump into the evaluation section, please. So for Drew, we were having David do the evaluation. So David, could you please give your evaluation for Drew?
Sure. Great speech. I liked it. I learned a lot, I think. I sort of had some of that, I think, in a very fuzzy way, but your speech and your descriptions about the way the buckets flow down really clarified things for me, I think. And that was, so your speech was on how to say it, which is focusing on one of the topics from the Competent Communicator book, and focuses on short sentences, clear speech, clear communication, and avoiding jargony words and things like that. And I did not hear much in the way of jargon. The only jargony word I could come up with was logarithm, and you kind of use that as a straw man anyway. So I think you definitely satisfied the requirements for the speech. I really like the way your intro, body of the speech, and the conclusion all flowed together, and all drove towards your central argument, which is to clarify and articulate what the real way the tax brackets work. Like your visuals, I think there might have been an opportunity to make the visuals a little bit better if you had picked in a couple of examples, perhaps, of this particular person with this amount goes through this kind of buckets in the tax bracket. Might have been even more clear. And the other thing I would mention is the sense a little bit of a negativity in the speech, and be something I prefer not to. But again, very, very well argued, very clear, and very convincing. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next, we have Vince's speech. I would like to call on Tony to please present your evaluation for Vince.
Thank you. Vince, pretty good speech. It's always interesting to hear somebody talk about seeing a challenge and overcoming it. This is a pretty good solution to a TechMasters problem. I've occasionally thought about playing with something myself. Of course, I'm more wanting to play with like something like Raspberry Pi or something, but this is a great approach. It's a great presentation on the overall way to do it. You did manage to make it fairly entertaining. You kept our attention. You avoided jargon, and you said watch for that. There might have been a couple places where you maybe would want to include that, but overall, you did a great job. Now, a few little points to improve. Your introduction at first seemed to be a little bit rambling, and I'm not sure that using your introduction as a sales point for your upcoming event at the same time. If I were gonna give the speech in general, I'd say just give a general speech and talk about the fact that you had one coming and you needed something better. And we'll go back to and I always like to harp on slides. Your slides, bigger fonts. Fortunately, I was sitting up front and I could read it. But in a larger, especially in a large room, it wouldn't work very well. And take the bullet symbols out. That should be removed from the even an option in PowerPoint. It's very rarely that's needed. Overall, great speech. I love the demo. I love the fact that you brought it with and showed it to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony. All right, so with those two evaluations in our mind, let's do our vote for the best evaluator. So please bow your heads. Those of you that would like to vote for David as the best evaluator, please raise your hand. Thank you. And those that would like to vote for Tony as the best evaluator, please raise your hands. Thank you. You may raise your heads. Now I'd like to call on our grammarian, please, to give us your report.
Thank you. So for table topics and for his evaluation, Tony had 0 crutch words, congratulations, and you did use the word of the day during your table topics, very nice. David, during your table topics, used 3 crutch words, and during your evaluation, I heard 3. Mike Gressman, during table topics, had 0 crutch words and used the word of the day. Mike, during table topics, 0 crutch words and the word of the day. Drew, during your speech, I heard 8 crutch words and word of the day. And Vince, during your speech, I heard 2 crutch words and the word of the day. For the second week in a row, the word picture award goes to a bucket-related word picture, and that goes to Drew.
Thank you, Peter. Next, I'd like to call for our timer report. Matt, please give us your report.
Sure. Thank you. The table topics, time limits 1 to 2. Tony, you got 1:30. David, 1:05. Mikey, you got 1:20, and Mikey, you got 1:45. For speech, Vince, you got 14:28 seconds. Drew, you got 6:33. Evaluation, Tony, you got 2:32, and David, you got 2:12.
Thank you. And now we'd like to present our wise old owl. Lori, please describe this and present it, please.
I'm very proud of TechMasters. You know chaos really, really well. Chaos can be difficult to talk about and even more difficult to deal with. I think the word picture / response that really struck home was using chaos to clean. I'd like to give this to Mike for being very honest about what cleaning really looks like.
All right, now we'll jump into giving out our awards for Best Evaluator and Best Speaker. So, Best Evaluator, drum roll. Best Evaluator today is David. Thank you, sir. And our Best Speaker Award, drum roll please. Our Best Speaker is Vince. Sir. Finally, we are way late, so just a few quick comments. I love how we continue to jump in on roles that are missing. Also, I'm going to parrot something that Mike continues to say because I like it. when we're doing evaluations, it's a mini speech. So it's introduction, body, and conclusion to the speech would help, I think, make a great evaluation. So just keep that in mind going forward. Other than that, I am going to turn it back over to our Toastmaster so that we can keep on moving.
Thank you, Mike. And now I've got a couple last awards. The Fuzzy Mouse, which goes to someone who takes a technical topic and turns it on its head, and literally did this with a pivot on the graph to explain how tax brackets work. I'm going to give this to Drew. And if you think about Spark, and can anyone come up with something larger, Spark, than the playing around with 120 volts and wiring stuff together willy-nilly and then just plugging in to see if it works? If that doesn't shock you across the room, I don't know what will, but this, I'll give this to. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the chaotic craziness of spring. It's going to be changing. The world's getting warmer. Everything is going to happen. It's going to be exciting. Today we've got the launch. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Let me hand it back over to our president, Lori.
Right. At this time, for closing, I'd like to ask for any other announcements.
Twin Cities Code Camp, week from Saturday.
Week from Saturday, and Mark is speaking,
I'm also speaking.
and Mike is speaking. Excellent. And also, was it May 7th?
22nd?
Well, a different.
If you look at the TechMasters site, it actually has the links on there for open source North is May 22nd. And then there's an MDC in Minneapolis. I think that's coming up sooner than that.
It's
Early
early May.
May.
Through nine,
Okay.
through the 9.
Yeah.
Although that might be in St. Paul.
And then another announcement is we will be having club leadership election in first meeting in May. So if you're interested in a role on the executive committee team, please let me know so I can add you to the ballot. And currently we have openings for president and secretary for sure, and option on VP of education. So please let me know what you're interested in. All right, and then let's take a look at what's happening this next week. So next week is April 9th, and our Toastmaster, who is it? We have a Toastmaster next week.
Is that Mike Hoffner? Or is that
Mike.
Yeah.
There he is. So Mike, I'll just think really loud. Mike, you're the Toastmaster. And you will be seeing an email before Friday-ish about what the theme is for the next week, so you can plan accordingly for your speeches and or table topics. And for our timer, do you have a closing thought for us?
So, the ideas without labors are steel balls.
Thank you.